Well, my time in Canada was very fruitful. I had some pretty memorable interviews. One interview in particular is with a lady called Bryony Penn, who comes across as very humble and quiet, but once you get to know her and get to talk to her, man, can she start going. I can't even remember what she says half of the time, but the only thing I can remember that she said is that people in the West, their countries are pretty much ruined, and everybody will be migrating over here when civilization collapses, which I hope they don't, for obvious reasons. I found out about climate change exactly 4 years ago in 2009. Before that, I didn't know there was such a thing even called climate change. I lived in that bubble. So, could you try and explain in scientific terms, social terms, what exactly it is, this thing we're busy fighting, and that's got a lot of oil companies so upset?
So it's essentially, climate change is really what it is. It's a change in the climate because there is more carbon and other greenhouse gases being released back into the atmosphere. It's sort of like adding an extra blanket around the earth, which increases the heat and increases the temperature. And once you have heat in a system, heat generates energy, and energy generates storms. So what we see with climate change is an increase. What most people are experiencing is not necessarily the degree of temperature change, but it's the increase in frequency of storms. Because as soon as something hots up, when you get agitated, you're moving, right? So that's what happens in the atmosphere. When things start to heat up, things start to move. So you get more hurricanes, you get more precipitation because there's movement, you get bigger storms, you get crazier weather events, you get hotter drought and colder days and hotter days. Everything starts happening in the extreme. It really is not a question of whether climate change exists, and the position of characterizing it as a question is very manipulative. It's a bit like revisiting this question that the world is flat over and over and over again in order to stop people advancing on how to solve health issues. I mean, it's that stupid. It's that stupid an idea of saying there is no such thing as climate change as saying the world is flat. Small resilient communities are resilient, right? And they will be able to survive. The answer really about all of these issues that you're asking is for Lesotho people to maintain their strong cultural community identities, to keep the knowledge of how things are grown, of what their medicinal properties are, of what the landscape is and the biodiversity of them, and to do that in whatever manner they can and be patient.
Climate change is a threat to all of us, but it's a great threat for the future generation. It doesn't matter if you're in Canada or in Lesotho. It's a threat nonetheless. So, my plea to all of us is that we should unite now so that it doesn't become harder and harder for the coming generations, because they'll look back on the generation that just let things slip. Having said that, to the people in the West, you often find whenever a certain country wants to put out a donation drive for a certain starving country on a certain continent, wink wink, they always put what? The child with a fly on their lip. But now I am reversing the roles. If you can't find any better reason to fight climate change, I'm putting it right in front of you. because for years you've been campaigning to save Africa's children. Now it's time for you to save your own.